Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, and welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and executive editor of ProduceBuzz.com. Our fearless leader, Teresa Nolan, will not be able to join us today because of some prior commitments. Neither will Cynthia Benedetto. So it's just me and Rick Stepp, a contributing editor to Produce Buzz. And this week's guest on the show needs no introduction to our regular listeners of the Produce Buzzers podcast. He has appeared on the show many times, and more than anyone else. And last time he was on, I dubbed him the Steve Martin of our podcast because Steve Martin appeared on Saturday Night Live more than anyone else over their 40-year run. And while he needs no introduction to our regular listeners, I will do so anyway for our newer listeners. We are delighted to have Robert Schueller of Melissa's World Variety Produce back on the show. Robert's official title at Melissa's is Director of Public Relations, but we prefer his unofficial title given to him by countless consumer and national trade publications, along with TV and radio personalities. He is the produce expert. There probably is no one on the planet who is more of an expert on produce than Robert, because his company sells thousands of different varieties of fresh fruits and veggies from all over the world. Robert has written several books on fresh produce, including my favorite, Melissa's Great Book of Produce, which tells all about some of the most exotic fruits and veggies from around the world. It's a beautiful publication with beautiful photos and lots of interesting and helpful information about all those fruits and veggies. Today, we're going to be discussing some of those more exotic fruits: lychees, rambutans, mangosteens, and passion fruit. Robert, thank you for joining us again, and welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Edwin, for having me back on Produce Buzzers. Always exciting to tell what is new and exciting in the world of produce in America.
Yes.
So let us begin.
You're one of our favorite guests, and also when you appear, our views and listens go way up. So you've been one of the most popular ones with our listeners as well. Now, before we get to those exotic tropical fruits that we are going to zero in on today, tell us what's new from Melissa's. I see some amazing posts on your social media feeds highlighting the vast array of fruits and veggies you distribute. But what's most exciting to you, or what's the newest addition to your product line right now?
Well, we're now in the summer season, so every time during this time, during summer, we have a lot of our domestic tree fruit coming off. Winter's over, spring is beyond. Everything was kind of delayed for the summer because of the cooler weather, especially on the West Coast, that affected a lot of the fruit. But the most exciting stuff happening right now: apricots, peaches, nectarines, plums, cherries are just starting up. All those different varieties of melons, from your Charente to your sunshine watermelons. There's about a dozen and a half different varieties of melons that are at this time, beyond your regular cantaloupe and honeydew. And then, of course, we get into our domestic grape season, Moscato grapes, and then soon, everything's kind of delayed. So coming up in July, we're going to have some exciting champagne grapes and jelly drop grapes, and those ever so popular cotton candy grapes. So those are the big things: the tree fruits, the melons, and the grapes in terms of fruit. But of course, looking at vegetables, we're looking at vegetables like we're in the peak of the rhubarb season. We're going to get into the peak of variety heirloom tomato season and all those different exciting varieties of tomatoes, and different varieties of cucumbers, from your mini, which are also referred to as Persian, to
Right.
hothouse, and colorful cauliflower, really popular for this summer season. People love to put color on their plates. So that's just a
Yeah.
few of the exciting things that are going on now in the summer season.
No, you guys just have too many things that are too exciting. And I encourage our listeners to go check out melissas.com and look. I mean, it's an education just to go across their site. They tell you all about each fruit and vegetable. And so it's really an experience just to go to their site. And you can order some of the things from that site. You might not be able to get them in your local store if you're somewhere in the hinterlands, but you can order them and have them shipped to you. So that's all fantastic. I know the melons was one of the things that I really saw on your social media feed. You had 5 or 6 or maybe even more than that different types of melons in one post, and they all look like they're so delicious. The flavors are so unique and delicious. It goes well beyond cantaloupe and honeydew, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, let's get to those exotic fruits. Let's start with lychees, I think, because I'm guessing that might be the fruit that most of our listeners are aware of and maybe even tried. First of all, what do they look like? Can you describe?
Okay. Sure. Lychees are smaller than a golf ball, more like ping pong ball size.
Yeah.
They are extremely popular in all of Asia. They're popular also in from Mexico, Central and South America, where they grow. We actually, because they're highly seasonal in each of the growing areas, they're probably available from 4 to 8 weeks. So we do multi-source them. The beginning of the season starts in May, but everything was kind of pushed forward. So things started to happen in June from Mexico. We also get them from Taiwan, China, and then as we make our way into the fall season, early fall season, we get them from South Africa. So really, it's a fruit that's from like May until early September, but there is a second season out of Australia, which is in the winter months, in January and February, but that's very short. But these are ping pong ball fruits. You actually peel them. The leathery skin, you peel almost like a hard boiled egg, but they peel really easily because they're more leathery. Inside, if I didn't explain it, on the outside, majority of the lychees are red in color. There are ones that are yellowish green. The ones we get from South Africa, they call them green lychees because they're kind of yellowish green with a pink blush. But most often than not, when you're going to see lychees, they're red on the outside. When you peel it open, there is a white translucent flesh. That is the fruit that you actually get to enjoy. But in the middle is a pit. Think of it kind of like a cherry. Once you peel it, you can't eat the pit. It's a black pit on the inside. And just the flavors. I know, Edwin, you were able to try some recently. It is just so flavorful. Um, it has actually almost this rosy flavor to it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Because when you smell them, they smell rosy, but they have so many different flavors in there. It's hard to describe. Anytime someone says, "What does a lychee taste like?" I say, "It tastes like a lychee," because there's so many flavors going on.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
it's hard to assimilate because it's a very unique looking fruit and tasting fruit.
Yeah, it is quite different. And you're right, it's complex. You at the front, I get, like I said, kind of a rose, I would say almost perfumey, which some people might think that's not good, but it is a good. And then you go through this like a fine wine. You go through this series of tastes, and it finishes off differently. But yeah, so that's a very good description of them. And we're going to post we will post some videos and photos on our website, producebuzz.com. for our listeners to go and take a look at. And you can always go to melissas.com as well and see them there. So, yeah, that's great. And so lychees, are they tropical then? I mean, if you're growing them in Taiwan's not really tropical, is it?
Well, they have they're considered a tropical or exotic to the United States because
Yeah.
one, they don't really grow in the United States. There's not a commercial crop. I mean, if you go to Hawaii, they grow wild, but it's not a commercial
Oh,
crop. They grow very few in Florida, but really doesn't make its way out of Florida.
yeah.
So, there's many names for exotic and tropical fruit, and this is because when you say exotic and tropical, it's referred to as foreign. Now,
Yeah.
the fruit it loves temperate weather, but it also loves heat for it to really ripen up.
Okay.
So it's a somewhat subtropical temperatures that they do best in. But this is a very common everyday fruit in Asia, in particular, and a favorite that is seasonal.
Yeah.
So it's something to look forward to for the summertime. And then again, there's a really short window outside the summer in the wintertime because we look below the equator and then get them from Australia.
Right. Got it. They flip the seasons there. So
Hmm.
do lychees have any symbolism in the Asian culture? Do you know? Or is
They
there,
definitely do, and
yeah.
most fruits and vegetables do. And um, they're because they're like coins in size, even though they're round. They're looked as good fortune type fruit. Fruit is given as a gift in the culture. It's very common to have fruit for dessert. Unlike here in the United States, we like to have something sweet like cake or pie.
Cake. Yeah.
So is a great gift giving in Asia when you are invited over for dinner, with friends or whatever. But the symbolism really comes around, and it because of Chinese New Year, which
Yeah.
is during the months of either January and February. So they're imported in from Australia into Asia. And then it's a very popular gift, as are many different varieties of citrus. And there's also other symbolisms behind the fruits and vegetables during that celebration.
Yeah. All the fruits we'll talk about today probably have that same kind of symbolism, but I just was curious if there was something specific that you knew of. I think the first time I ever had lychees was in a Chinese restaurant, and it was served as a dessert. And I remember, wow, I couldn't believe how good they were. So, what other ways can they be used? Are they used in other recipes? Lychees?
Most definitely. Most often than not, it's very popular fresh to peel and enjoy out of hand. However, you go to our website and you'll be able to find some different recipes to work with. They're
Right.
used in sauces.
Oh,
Not a lot. Other than possibly in different baked goods and desserts, is where it's most commonly used in because of its sweet flavor there. You obviously don't have to add sugar when you're working with them. One
right.
thing that I find, the green ones that we get towards the end of the season that we get from South Africa and also from China, they have a very small pit in them. One little thing that I do is I use a cherry pitter when we have that season.
Oh,
You can't use them for the regular lychees that are red
oh, okay.
because they produce a big seed. But
Too
the
big.
green ones, which are greenish yellow on the exterior, they have a really small seed. So I can use a cherry pitter to pit them out.
Yeah,
Because
excellent.
typically when you eat a lychee, you pop the whole thing in your mouth and you eat around the seed, like a cherry.
Right.
And so that's why you can use a cherry pitter for the green lychees that will come later in the summer into early September.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had any special hacks for getting that pit out. But the ones in the red ones the pit's pretty big and it's kind of odd shaped. It's not round. It's kind of oblong, isn't it?
Very, very
Yeah,
oval, like
right.
flat almost, but not
Yeah,
flat, roundish. But yeah.
yeah,
So it truly produces a seed different than any other fruit
yeah.
as well.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah. Robert was so kind to send me some lychees before this podcast, and I got a bunch of them here, and I want to peel them, and I was hoping to peel them and pit them and go ahead and do them ahead of time, but it's a lot of work. And that pit doesn't come free as easily as a cherry pit either. It kind of sticks a bit, I think. So
Yeah, that's why it's just so difficult to be able to, process them, to just have the fruit. On a regular lychee, you would use a knife, but you would
yeah,
chop it into a lot of pieces to make its way around the seed. It
right,
comes off the seed pretty easily once you're cutting it around, or if you put it in your mouth.
right,
It's not like a clingstone type peach where
yeah.
the fruit really holds on to the seed. It's actually a black, smooth seed, like shiny and smooth. So it comes out really clean. So they're really easy to pit, even easier to pit in your mouth than a cherry.
Oh,
So,
okay. That was not
but some people like to spit the pits. So, like they do cherries. So,
right. I wonder if they have a lychee pit spitting contest like they do for
I
cherries.
don't know about that.
But
Something to research.
yeah. So yeah, and I guess commercially they must have some sort of commercial lychee pitters because I've seen them canned in the grocery
They do
store.
come canned.
Yeah.
Correct. They
So,
do. They do have a system.
but it's not as
So,
good as the fresh. And a lot of
no,
times they
the
put it in
canned.
syrup, I think, too, which is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
they put so much sweetener or preservative in it. It's not the exact same experience than a fresh lychee.
Yeah.
It's night
Can,
and day when it comes to the difference between fresh and canned.
and can our listeners order lychees on your site and have them shipped to them?
Yes, as long as they're in season.
Okay.
We always recommend, if you don't find it at your local retail store, and Miss Melissa distributes into most supermarkets across the country. You can
Yep.
even ask your produce department to get them, because pretty much most stores are linked in with Melissa's.
Right.
And yeah, it's something you definitely have to put on your bucket list for different exciting fruit if you've
Yeah.
never tried them before.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about rambutans next because they are very close. I don't know if they're actually related, but
They are a cousin.
they're cousin. Okay, they're related to
They are a
lychees.
cousin. They do have some similarities. There's three fruits that are very similar to each other:
Okay.
lychees, longans, and
All right.
rambutans.
Yeah, longans. Yeah.
Rambutans and lychees are more common here in the United States. Longans are a little bit harder to find. However,
Right.
let's talk about the rambutan. The difference is rambune in rambutan means hairy in Thailand.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So this is a fruit. Instead of it being round like a ping pong ball, it is round, but it has little hairs. So most people, when they first see it and never seen a rambutan before, they mistake it for a sea urchin from the ocean.
Yeah,
No,
it does look like
these
that.
actually these actually grow from trees, just like the lychee. They're red in color with yellowish, dark colored hairs. The hairs are about an inch and a half. They're almost like spiky, so it's not like regular hair like you have on your head. They're kind of like a growth, but the whole thing is, there's hundreds of little growths of spikiness all over the fruit. No, they don't
They're not
cut or
sharp.
anything
Yeah,
like that.
right.
They're soft.
Yeah.
They're soft. Now, this is what's cool about the rambutans. They're a little bit bigger. They're a little bit bigger than a ping pong ball size. What you do is you can score it, you can peel it, from the stem end, or what you can elegantly do is score it in a circle all the way around, and then just kind of squeeze off the top, and the fruit will just pop out. You will squeeze the fruit out, and then you have two little containers of rambutans, which is really cool,
Oh,
that you can
yeah.
do something with,
Right.
and use it as a garnish. The skin is not edible. However, the fruit, just like the lychee, it has a white, translucent flesh, and there is a seed on the inside. The rambutans have a white seed instead of a dark black
Oh,
seed.
right.
The flavors are a little bit different. I think the rambutans are less rosy and just as sweet as the lychee, but you do get a lot more flesh in that fruit. And these are the,
Right.
these are the fruits that scare everyone or they scare people who are not familiar with them because they look like a sea urchin.
Yeah, they do. That's exactly. I was trying to think what they reminded me of, and I didn't think of sea urchin until you said it. But that's good. And the taste, as you said, it's just as sweet, but their tastes are quite different. At least the ones I've tried. The Rambutans that you sent me and I tried had a more earthy taste to them as opposed to I don't know how to do other way to describe
Almost
it.
grapey, pear, a little bit of strawberry. I would say
Yeah,
more like a Muscat
that's a
wine
good.
grape.
That's a good
That's a
definition. Yeah.
kind of, but it's a little bit different. It is watery like the lychee. I don't think it's as sweet, but you do get a lot more flesh. Now the fruit has a longer season than that of a lychee that we discussed because we multi-source them from Mexico, from Honduras, from Guatemala. Guatemala and Honduras closer to the equator, so they have
Yeah.
temperatures that go for a longer season. We actually have them 8, 9 months out of the season, so they're more available than lychees.
Okay.
And one of the neat things that it is very popular because they're available in September and October as well, is that it's one of our big freaky fruits that we promote leading up to Halloween.
Oh, that's
And we
brilliant.
have these really exciting recipes. If you go to our website and just put in rambutan, you can find the recipes and also about how you can use them for Halloween.
Oh,
So let's see here.
yeah.
And using, as I mentioned at the beginning, where you take the rambutan and you cut it in a circle and you pull off the top and you pit it really easily. You use the skin in the display because it looks like a
All right.
really interesting. It looks like a sea urchin type
Yeah.
display, but you use the skin that looks like a little bowl, and you fill it up with like pomegranate seeds. So
Uh,
it looks really cool. If you go onto our website and put in Halloween recipes, you're going to come up with some recipes on what you can do with these rambutans to make a scary display next to your pumpkins, next to your other exciting freaky fruits that we call it for that holiday.
that's great. I can't wait. I can't wait to check that out. They do look kind of scary, monster-like in a way, don't they? That's all those hairs coming off them. So now, so these are pretty much you eat them the same way. Well, you don't eat them the same way you do the. Well, once you get the meat out, you can eat it
Yeah,
like a lychee,
they're
right? You pop
very
it in your mouth.
similar to what you would do with the lychee. The I mentioned it had a white seed. Now the seed it sticks a little bit more to the flesh, so it doesn't come out as smooth. But when you put it into your mouth, it definitely you can easily remove the seed that way. Again, you can cut all the way around it to seed it, but a cherry pitter is not going to work. The seed is
Right.
larger, the fruit is larger, almost double the size of a lychee. So you just get a lot more fruit in the rambutans.
Right. And I suppose we talked about recipes for lychees. I suppose that these could be interchangeable for some of those recipes. Is that correct? Or
Yes,
what would you
when
recommend?
lychees are not available, rambutans are the perfect substitute. And like I said, rambutans do have a longer season. Lychees are about 5 months out of the year, and rambutans are 9 months out of the year.
Okay,
So
that's almost
yeah.
twice as long.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
I just
exciting.
pulled up I wanted to get the name of that recipe on our website using the rambutans, and you put the pomegranate seeds, the pomegranate arrows in the half cut rambutan. They're
Yeah.
called monster snacks.
I like it. That's
Monster
good.
snacks. Just go into our website, put in monster snacks, and we'll pop right up.
Yeah,
And
that's
if you go also the lychees may go into October. Also the longans. I mentioned that's the third fruit, and the longans are only available towards the end of the season, and it is the smallest of the three fruits. It has a brownish yellow skin, and it's about the size of a silver dollar. So they're a little bit smaller than the lychee. Um,
mm,
And if we also promote them for our freaky fruits during Halloween. And if you scroll where the Halloween recipes are on our website, because they're called dragon eyes, there's
Oh,
a dragon eye stew where you basically peel the longans, or if you still have lychees, you put them into a punch and they float
oh,
in the red punch that you can make. So there's
right.
some really interesting things, but Halloween's a way off. But if you're
All right.
into that, go onto our
No,
website and do Halloween recipes, and you'll see what to do with lychees, longans, and rambutans.
well,
Okay.
we'll have to have you back for a Halloween episode. So, but we'll go ahead and publish this, and we'll also maybe take a clip out and save it for Halloween. But that's great. I love that. That's a lot of fun. What can you tell us about the health benefits of these lychees and rambutans? Do you know
Yes.
some of the specifics there?
Oh, definitely. Lychees, they have very similar nutritional profiles to them. They're very high in vitamin C. And you thought an orange had a lot of vitamin C. Lychees have a great amount of vitamin C, vitamin A. Obviously, you're going to get fiber and potassium in there as well.
Yeah.
So you would definitely say that these are super fruits in terms from a nutritional standpoint. But
Right.
I would eat them more for their flavor than their nutritional standpoint, because the nutritional standpoint is just a secondary benefit to
Right.
enjoying these fruits. Because there are some different fruits and vegetables out there. They have super high nutrition, but maybe they're just not exciting
Right.
to your plate. I can tell you for sure, because lychees and rambutans is like peeling a tangerine.
Yeah.
Kids love peeling tangerines. They would love peeling their fruit and popping it into their mouth and enjoying the fruit
Yeah.
likewise. So if your son or daughter, your kids have a hard time eating fruits and vegetables, I would definitely introduce lychees and rambutans, if not now, when Halloween occurs, because I think they'll just get a really cool kick out of it.
Yeah. It
And
is a fun thing,
yeah,
isn't it? I could see
yeah.
the
And
kids.
who's not going to say, oh, I'm not going to buy them for my kids when the kids are like enjoying them and asking for them.
Right.
So it could be a win-win to get for parents to get kids to eat more fruits, and add that extra health benefit that these lychees and rambutans have. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Right. Fantastic.
If you
Well,
freeze these fruits, do they lose any flavor from freezing?
Okay, so if you freeze them, it's best if you peel them, because the skin after a while will freeze. So these don't freeze that well. However, the dragon eyes, which is the longan, they freeze a little bit better. But I wouldn't freeze them for more than 6 months. What happens is, believe it or not, they kind of dehydrate when they get frozen. But they can be frozen, but I would definitely first peel them before you freeze them and put them in a Ziploc bag, because you don't want the icicles to form. They'll get watery when you thaw them out. But when you thaw them out, they will definitely lose their texture. But what's
yes.
a really good idea is to do that, to peel them and freeze them, and then put them into a drink, and they'll float like an ice cube, and it will impart
Oh,
the flavor of that. And I think they've done that. They've done that with lychees. Mixologists have done that with lychees and made like a lychee martini
oh,
with a
wow.
frozen martini, instead of an olive or whatever,
Right.
and put it into a drink. But I've never tried that before, but it is
That's a,
possible. But I say fresh is always best.
yeah,
So
I agree. But that is a great idea. Is freeze them and put them in a drink like that. I've got to try that. I've got to freeze some of these, I think, or I'm going to lose a few. You sent me. You were so generous with what you sent me. I'm going to give away a few. But
Rick, did you try them frozen? Is that what you're saying?
No, I was just curious. For example, if you freeze strawberries, they're pretty well the same when you thaw them as far as flavor, but the texture is different. So,
Texture.
yeah.
Textures different. Same thing happens with lychees.
Yeah.
I think across the board, any fruit that you freeze will end up, if you when you defrost it, the flavors are there. They may dehydrate depending on how long you keep them in. But one thing about like strawberries, you put it into like a lemonade, and you enjoy the strawberry at the very last sip. But they're much softer. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good idea too. I hadn't thought about that. Well, anything else to tell us about lychees or rambutans before we move on?
I think again, these are two fruits. I would say they're definitely in my top 10, maybe top 5 in terms of the different fruits that are available to us in the United States. And as you know, there's over 400 to 500 different varieties of fruits and vegetables. 400 to 500 different varieties of fruits available to us. So to make that my top list, and I've tried just about every fruit that's available in the United States. I would highly endorse them because they're very more plentiful during the summer season than any other time.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's quite an endorsement coming from you, as you know so many fruits and vegetables. Well, the next fruit we're going to talk about, the flesh of it is very similar to lychees and rambutans, but the structure of the fruit is quite different, and that is mangosteens. Tell us about mangosteens.
Okay, so the mangosteen one is not related to the mango. It's its own type of fruit.
Right.
It is purple on the outside. And every time I try to describe the size of it or the shape of it, it's like the shape of a fuyu persimmon.
Right.
It kind of looks like a flatter tomato, but it's round.
Right.
Okay, so the skin is leathery. So they have a calyx on top, just like a persimmon does. A calyx is a leaf that starts to grow over the fruit.
Yeah.
Once you pull off the calyx, it becomes a little bit easier. Actually, if they're nice and fresh, you'll actually be able to like practically squeeze it, and the skin will start to buckle where you peel the fruit. Now, when you peel the purple skin off, you don't eat the skin, you eat the flesh on the inside. It's one of the few fruit, just like lychees and rambutans, that has a white flesh. However, it looks like when you peel it, like it's a segmented citrus, like a tangerine.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, and it's not in the citrus family either, even though the structure is very similar in shape to that of a peeled tangerine. Again, the fruit is bright white in color. It's probably the brightest white. And like I said, there's only a few fruits that are white in color, like lychees and rambutans and longans. There's vegetables like cauliflower and radishes, but there's not a lot of fruits and vegetables that are white.
That's a good point.
Don't let
I hadn't
that fool
thought
you
about
because
that.
it has a lot of nutritional profile.
Right.
Inside the fruit, usually the largest segments, because I said it's segments like a tangerine, there's could be like 2 to maybe 3 small seeds. But this fruit, it is also called the queen of fruit, the mangosteen, because it was Queen Victoria's favorite fruit that was given to her as a gift from Asia, mainly from Thailand. So in Southeast Asia, this is one of the prized fruit. Queen Victoria said it was her favorite tasting fruit. And if you kind of Google it, or go on a search engine talking about mangosteens, most will swear by that it's the best tasting fruit in the world. Definitely one of my top 5. It is a fruit that is available seasonally. We are at the peak of the season right now in the summertime. So it starts in spring and it will go until about November. We do multi-source it, but the largest crop of mangosteen is available out of Mexico. Okay. We were the company, Melissa's Produce actually was the company that introduced it fresh into the United States for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And that was back in 2009. But it's been a very elusive fruit because when we first started to import it in, it wasn't available from Mexico at the time. We imported it in from various tropical islands in the Caribbean and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And before we started to be able to start getting it from Thailand, but now the main growers out of Mexico, the season's from May until September, October, and it is like I said, and you'll see this if you Google it, the best tasting fruit possibly in the world. But they are hard to find because they are pricey.
Yeah.
They're about the size of a tangerine, and they pretty much sell for about $2 each.
Oh, wow.
So in many cases, that's something that is really standoffish to people.
Right.
But as you know, Edwin and Rick, you probably have noticed that mangosteen has really made their way into a lot of acai bowls, a lot of juices that you can find, as mangosteen is an ingredient because of
Oh,
its high antioxidant properties. Um, and um, and in that case, when the fruit is actually juiced, it is usually juiced with the skin. But like I said, fresh, the skin is not edible straight up. It's kind of like probably chewing like beef jerky. But apparently, when it's processed and used in all these different juices at those big juice bars nationally, mangosteen seems to be one of those high antioxidant type fruit like acai, like dragon fruit, like noni.
yeah.
And this is the mangosteen. And that's why
So,
there's still a market for it, despite the fact it's really expensive. However, if you're in Thailand, it's one of the most common fruits. And in Thailand, they're like, a dime a dozen, really, 25
right.
cents each,
Yeah.
because they're just such a common, well-loved fruit. And that's when people usually get to experience it for the first time, whether they're in Central or South America or in Southeast Asia and Asia, where it's extremely popular.
Yeah. I think the first time I had one was in Thailand. I went there in the late 80s. And man, they put on some banquets and some real feasts for us. And I think it was the first. Now, are you saying when they juice mangosteen, they crush up the skin with the fruit? Did I understand that?
Correct. Having,
Wow.
Edwin, having the fruit just recently, I mean, I enjoy them every year. It's one of my wife's favorite fruits. She always
It
asks
is
me to bring
really
them
good.
home.
Really good.
Um, the flesh is so sweet. That is why they use the skin as well, because there's strong antioxidant properties in the
Yeah.
skin.
Right.
So
When you cut that into that skin, the way I was opening them was scoring it all the way around and then
score
pop.
them all the way around. If they're
But the
super fresh, you can
purple,
actually
yeah,
squeeze them to crush them open.
yeah,
But
and it the
typically,
and
they you can score them, and it just, the top pops off, just kind of like a what you would do with a rambutan.
yeah, but when you cut into that skin, this purple juice comes out of it and stains everything. So I can imagine that's got to be filled with antioxidants because of that color, the purple in there. So that's interesting. I wondered about juicing some of these things, but it would be much easier. They don't have to separate the flesh out. They just crush and eat crush the whole thing up. So that's interesting.
I
Right.
wonder if
So
they
you can
filter that.
also go ahead, Rick.
I wonder if they filter that when they make the juice.
They
To take
probably
it.
do, because the skin, the rind,
It's
is
pretty tough.
yeah, it is tough, like barky,
Yeah.
but or like jerky. So but that's what they do when they juice them at the juice bars. They put the skin and all and just put it into a blender, and you're good to go there. They probably do filter out because of any fiber, probably adds fiber as well. But
Yeah.
if you go to our website, there's a video and a step-by-step on how to cut it open if you're not able to kind of crush it open the way I described it, because it has a really good shelf life, and the skin hardens up as it ripens. A lot of times, Edwin, it's easier to score it with a knife all the way around and just pop off the top like a lid.
Right. Right.
Right.
Now, I saw something that, as you said, it has sections in it. And I read something that it normally has either 5 or 6 segments, and that you can
Correct.
tell how many by looking at the bottom of the fruit. Is this true?
Correct. That is correct. So you have the stem end where the calyx is, that's the leaf.
Right.
And then you have the bottom of the fruit. The bottom of the fruit is It's a scar from the flower.
Oh,
You guys,
okay.
if you didn't know, Fruit 101, flower turns into a fruit, correct?
Right.
So if you look at the bottom end, which is the scar end of the petals of the flower, you will see how many petals are going to be, how many segments are going to be in the fruit.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah,
How
it
nature
is.
works that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Little clue
That's
there.
one of the few fruits you can do that with.
And is there is one that has five? Is one that has six segments considered better than one that has five? Is there any difference in the
No,
quality? No.
no, none whatsoever. Some have four, some have seven.
Oh, so
So,
there can be.
um,
Oh, really? So you can get more than that?
yeah,
Okay, or
yeah,
less.
and it's
More.
you don't know if you're gonna get at least one seed because it is a fruit,
Right.
but in many cases there might be two or three just really small seeds. And when you open it up, you'll see whichever segments are like larger than normal, those
Yeah.
are the ones that are, develop the seed inside. So, like
Okay.
I said, I think most often than not, you're going to get at least two little seeds.
Right.
So don't just bite into the flesh. You just got to make sure you don't eat the seed.
Crack
Well,
a
I mean, if
tooth.
nothing's going to really happen to you, maybe you get a tummy ache because you don't
Yeah.
usually eat fruit seeds, unless, of course, it's like a pomegranate or whatever, or it's a
Right.
tracer seed in a seedless grape or a tracer seed in a watermelon. But
Yeah.
you don't want to bite into it, if
Right.
you're serving it to your kids.
Yeah, I
So,
did notice that those segments varied in size, and there usually was three or maybe two or three big ones, and then the others were smaller.
right.
So that's interesting. Okay. So mangosteens, are they native to Thailand? Is that where they originated, or have they been? Are they all over?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
From
But
Southeast Asia. Thailand is probably the major grower. In the United States, they grow in the Virgin Islands in the Caribbean. They do grow wild in Hawaii as well, but we don't get the commercial crops from there. The commercial
yeah,
crops that we get are mangosteen, and what made them more affordable, because when we first introduced the mangosteens, because I had told you that mangosteens are about $2 each. When
yeah.
we first introduced the mangosteens, they were like $5 or $6 each back in
Wow.
2009. So the price has come down, and they again put it on your bucket list. The mangosteens is one of the fruits. I mean, Queen Victoria, she's the one that says the best tasting fruit in the world. Could
Yeah.
be, could be. Depends how your palate assesses it, but it does definitely makes my top five. I would say it's number three.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Queen Victoria had access to a lot of fruits in her day, being who she was. I don't know if we didn't have the kind of distribution we have today of fruits, but people probably were trying to impress her with, and if that's the one she thought was best, I tell you, it's pretty close for me too. I was really amazed at how sweet and delicious they are. So very
Yeah.
good. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about today is quite different than the other three that we've talked about today.
Yeah.
But I'm sure our listeners also, maybe this is the one they've heard of the most, because it is quite, I mean, the name is quite well recognized, but I bet that most of our listeners have never eaten one fresh, and that is passion fruit. Because passion
Yeah.
fruit, we see it a lot in flavoring and drinks and that kind of thing, but to eat one fresh is quite an experience. Tell us about passion fruit.
Passion fruit is probably one of the more unique fruits. I know rambutans are really unique, and the mangosteens. We seem to be capturing some of the most exciting tropical fruit that are seasonal. And if you've never tried, you've got to try. Passion fruit is one of those fruits. It is a fruit that is available. We now have it 10 months out of the year. I
Oh, wow.
remember 20 years ago, they were highly seasonal. They came only from New Zealand,
Uh-oh.
and they were only available for 4 months out of the year. But because of the demand of passion fruit, not only by chefs, mixologists, and also consumers on learning on how to work with these, we pretty much carry them 10 months out of the year. So half the season's from New Zealand, which is February till June. So now we're transitioning into domestic product. We've been growing them in California for quite some time now, like
Oh,
17 years. And they also are a big crop in Florida as well. But one thing is similar on all of them, whether they're from Australia on the opposite season because Australia is below the equator, or the domestic season, which is happening pretty soon. Passion fruit is purple on the outside. It is a fruit that has a leathery skin. It is a fruit that is very light. Unlike most fruit, like citrus and stuff like that, they're bulky, right?
yeah.
Well, passion fruit, when you cut it open, and you would cut it open like with a steak knife because of the leathery skin, you
Yeah.
would definitely, when you open it up, it has a bright yellow green gelatinous seeds. And what you do is you take a spoon and you scoop it out. It is delicious. It is very fruity. And a little bit of passion fruit goes a long way. That's why
Yeah.
they're probably not heavy. But this is the most unique thing about this fruit. It actually tells you when it's ripe and ready to eat. When you buy them at the store, they should be smooth like a ball, round and smooth like a ball, purple in color. You bring them home, you keep them on your counter. Always bring your fruit home and keep on your counter. Only until they're ripe would you put them in the refrigerator, because the refrigerator will stop ripening the process. It puts them into a cold coma. There's a lot of fruits like tomatoes and avocados and bananas you shouldn't put in the refrigerator. It will distort the taste of them,
Right.
because you put it in the refrigerator, it has a pretty good shelf life, but it distorts the flavor.
Yeah.
However, these fruits will wrinkle up like a prune. When they start looking bad and very wrinkly all over, and then one thing that most fruit does, it communicates the ripeness by a fragrance. So when the passion fruit starts to really wrinkle up, in fact, our sticker on there says wrinkled when ripe. Then you can
Huh.
put them in the refrigerator and enjoy them when you want to, because they have a really good shelf life because of the skin. But you cut it open, you scoop out the seeds and the pulp, and people like to just take shots of them with a spoon. But they the bakeries, or if you had a nice restaurant, they love to top it on top of cheesecake. That's a very popular thing. You can put it
Oh,
into a drink. I think most people have experienced passion fruit as a flavor in like a juice or a drink at a tropical island like Hawaii, but maybe in this case, never seen it fresh.
yeah.
This is another one of those fruits you definitely got to put on your list, the top 10. And but the key is, if you cut them open when they're right round, they're going to be sweet, but they're going to be very tart as
Yeah.
well. But when they ripen up and shrivel up like a prune, that's when they're the sweetest and the most enjoyable way to enjoy them.
Yeah. There's not a lot of content in them, but man, that goes a long way. It's such a powerful flavor, just very, very strong in a good way flavor. And it's beautiful to look at too. That, as you said, yellow green in these seeds, and it's gelatinous, as you said, a little slimy, but not in a bad way at all. It's a nice it's a nice texture, in my opinion. So
It definitely is a flavor enhancer wherever you put it in, whether
right,
you put it on a fruit salad, or if you put it onto a pastry. A cheesecake is very common to just drizzle a little bit on the cheesecake. It
that's a
just
good
gives
idea.
it a little extra something. But obviously, its application is probably most notable using it in drinks.
Right.
It does add a punch of flavors, and it's very hard to describe. People say, "What does passion fruit taste like?" And I say, "Well, it tastes like passion fruit." But it's got so many tropical flavors going on there: pineapple, mango.
Right.
Again, it's of its unique fruit,
And the aroma
and
is very strong too, which of
yeah,
course we know that taste is mostly in the nose, not in
yeah.
the mouth, but it's really good. Over ice cream would be fantastic. That would be
And it's
good.
become a popular fruit, especially grown on the West Coast. A lot of the garden shops and stuff, they've been selling passion fruit, and it
As a
vines like crazy, like
Oh,
up a
okay.
fence or whatever, a trellis. And so people are becoming more familiar with it because they're actually growing it and enjoying the fruit that way. But
Yeah.
your listeners want to know why it's called passion
Oh,
fruit.
yes.
And
That's
there's a reason for that. Because of the it produces, if you Google it, what the flower looks like. It's not on our website, just what the fruit looks like and how to enjoy it, cook it, and taste it, and all that stuff. But if you Google passion fruit flower, it is the most gorgeous flower you ever seen.
Yeah.
The name is because it's a biblical fruit that is symbolic of the passion of Jesus Christ in the Bible. And it's the pistons, the flower leaf, the everything, the petals are all symbolic and representation of the death and passion of Jesus Christ.
Oh, wow, I
So
didn't know that.
it's a fruit that is biblical and named for that. So that's the background why it's called passion fruit.
I wonder if I haven't seen these flowers, but the sand dollar is supposed to be a symbol as well. Have you ever heard that? A sand dollar has
I've never heard of that, but
yeah. So
okay.
on a sand dollar, it's got 2 holes at the top and 2 holes at the bottom, and then one off to the side. So
Wow.
It's supposed to be for his hands, for his feet, and then the Roman spear going into his sides.
Wow.
I wonder if I'll have to look at the flower and see if there's if the pattern in it is something like that. I wonder what do they call that in religious, the stigmata or something they call it, the scars of Christ, stigmata, I think so.
Exactly.
Well, that's interesting. I never knew that. I didn't think to ask the question. I thought people were just passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a better, that's just as a good reason there.
Right.
But I get that question a lot in regards to it, and it's actually a biblical fruit. So there you go.
Interesting. That's great. Now, do you have
definitely bless you for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have, I've been cutting mine on a cutting board, lay it on its side and cut through. But when I do that, a lot of that meat or a lot of the juice and seeds comes out on my cutting board, and I've lost it. How do I stop? How do I prevent that?
Plastic cutting board. Do not use a wooden cutting board because it will start to dissipate. But yes, anybody who's worked with passion fruit, what I like to do is so that doesn't happen is I cut 80% in.
Okay.
So when you cut 80% in, you just fold it over.
Oh, great idea. Excellent.
If you cut all the way down, yes, the juice and the seeds will start to fall out. And then you're like,
yeah.
Because,
how do I get this
like I said, there's not a lot of fruit in there. But if you cut 80%, the skin is pliable, flexible.
Just bend it back.
You can fold it, and that's what you do. You bend it back, and you won't have to worry about losing any of that exciting fruits and seeds and stuff like that that happen.
Oh, yeah, great idea. Thanks for that. Well, this has been fun. It always is when you come on, and enlightening and entertaining and informative. So thanks so much for joining us, Robert. I hope that your season you have so many seasons, so I can't say your season. You're always in season at Melissa's, but I hope the year is going well for you. You did mention that things in California, anyway, were delayed by a few weeks this year because of all that rain and cold. And so I hope that hasn't affected you in any too negative a way. I know you need the rain.
Sure. No, well, what's going to happen, because everything was delayed a month in terms of like the tree fruit and stuff like that, it looks like we will probably continue the fruit season a little bit longer. So instead of peaches and nectarines and stuff and plums ending in September, I think the season might be pushed as long as, God forbid, that we have another really wet and cold rainy season that starts early. Right. I'm hoping for great temperate weather. I mean, still this summer we haven't had a lot of hot days.
Yeah.
So and it's the sunshine and less rain that actually helps the crops there. So yes, thank you for you guys, you and Rick, for having me on there. Always exciting to be part of your Produce Buzzers, and until next season. Correct?
Right. Yeah. Well, I hope we'll have you back in a few weeks to talk about something else. I'll touch base with you. You always have something interesting to talk about, but I don't want to monopolize your time either. So
Always happy to answer those questions about exciting fruits and vegetables.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Robert. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And we'll hope to see you soon.
All right. You guys take care. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, Robert.
Thanks a lot,
again.
Robert.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page, and check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.